that there's a qul here. And let's keep it simple. The first point is very obvious. You have to give da'wah. You don't just, Allah didn't say, for instance, i'lam. Know that Allah is one. Allah did not say, i'lam huwa Allahu ahad. Know this fact. He didn't say, amin, believe it. Allah did not say that. He said, say it. Say it is not like just believing it or having faith in it or confirming it in your heart. No, say it. Convey this message. What's so scary is that if I went around the room and asked everybody, how many times have you recited this surah this year? You'd probably say 10, 20, 30, 50, 100. I don't know how many times. Some people would be in the hundreds even, right? And then I ask you, how many times did you listen to the surah? Like how many times did you obey it? Because each time Allah is telling you, say this message. Allah is one. Go out and tell the world. How many times did you obey? And then you say, I don't know. So that's a very scary fact. So every time you say this qul, remember that Allah is saying qul. Obviously, it's first and foremost to the Prophet ﷺ. It's in the singular. It's not saying qulu, it's saying qul. It's to the singular. But still, we follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And so a command to him, by extension, is a command to us. And so we need to convey this message. Allah is teaching us and telling us, say this message. Here's another perspective that is so beautiful. What is the difference between a believer and a hypocrite? The mu'min and the munafiq. What is the difference? Can anybody help me out with this one? Excellent, brother. Umayyu, that's it. Sorry, I forget. Jazakallah khair, beautiful. The difference is, the believer speaks from the heart. He doesn't, what he's feeling, he lets you know. If he feels good towards you, he lets you know. If he's feeling bad, he's honest with you. The believer is somebody who tells you what's going on in his heart. The munafiq, the hypocrite, is two-faced. When he's with this group, he's like, yeah, I'm with you guys. When he's with another group, yeah, I'm with you guys. He's just a two-face. And you never know what's going on internally, because what's going on internally and externally, they are not congruent. Okay, based on that fact, now, Allah is saying what? Do you have iman? Do you have faith in your heart? Because if you truly have Tawheed in your heart, if you have the oneness of Allah that is burning within your chest, if this is a conviction that is deep within you, then be the mu'min, be the believer that makes it manifest on his tongue. Because there should be no incongruity. If you are at work a believer, then what you talk to your co-workers about, what you convey, is this message of Tawheed. I'm not saying go to work and just walk around, tell everybody, Allahu Ahad, Allahu Samad. I'm not saying that. But at the end of the day, you have conversations with people, right? You interact with them. You talk about the weather, you talk about sports. At some point, they should know that you're a Muslim. At some point, you should talk to them about the belief in God. At some point, you should convey and ask them the question and tell them that this is the basis upon the lens with which I see the whole world. That God is my creator and that I live for him and that I will die and return to him. How do you see the world? It has to come out. You have to at some point convey this message of Tawheed and the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's very interesting that of all the 4 qul surahs that at the end of the Quran, you find these 4 surahs that start with qul. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun is a message to the disbelievers, specifically the disbelievers of Quraysh. It's not to everybody. You don't go up to every disbeliever, Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun. You don't say that to every single person that is not a Muslim. It's a very specific message that is for the Quraysh who had lived with the Prophet ﷺ, who had understood the message, and who still rejected it out of arrogance. When it comes to the last 2 qul surahs, they are du'as. You're making du'a to Allah. With this one though, you find that this is the basis of da'wah. That's why it's Surah Al-Asas. It's a basis. It's a foundational belief. And this is such an important idea. And I really want to stress on this. It's very dangerous and very problematic when Muslims, when they want to convey the message of Islam, the way they do it is by talking about secondary or tertiary issues. What do I mean by this? Somebody comes up to you. Why do you Muslims have a beard? Why do your women wear hijab? Why is this happening in the Middle East? Blah, blah, blah. They start talking about all these issues. Okay, fine. Good questions. But let's say theoretically, you engage the question. And you start talking about, let's say, hijab. And the guy says, I don't think women should be covered up. I don't like it. It's no good. And you start explaining, well, aren't you, let's say, a Christian? Yeah. Okay, didn't Mother Mary wear the hijab? Okay, that's a good point. Okay, let me ask you this. Don't you find that women are objectified in society and they're treated as objects? Yes. Don't you think that's a bad thing? Don't you think that you should treat a woman as a human being? And the way you do that is by preserving their modesty, or by a woman preserving her own modesty. And then when she preserves her own modesty, now she's not looked at as a piece of meat or as an object. Now she's treated as a human being, and her character shines through, and her thoughts and her emotions and attitudes and goals and aspirations, all of this shines through. That's a good point. You talk for a whole hour about this point, let's say theoretically. And at the end of a full hour, the guy says, wow, you know what? You're right. The hijab, modesty, covering up, all this stuff, it's a great idea. Thanks, bye, and he walks away. Now, yeah, you did a great job convincing of a hijab, but that's not Islam. Nobody says hijab is a good idea. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. It doesn't work like that. Nobody's going to just accept Islam because of the hijab just outright. They have to understand the basics. So you can talk about the hijab for a few moments, or the beard, or etc., 100 other things. But at the end of the day, you have to say, look, these are good questions, but let's bring it back to the basics. Where did we come from? What are we doing here? Where are we going? What is our purpose in life? Right? What is guidance? What is good? What is bad? Where do we get these beliefs from? How do we understand what a good life is and what a bad life, etc., etc. Basic concepts, fundamental conceptual important ideas. This is very, very critical. So that's another point. Now, here is a very interesting philosophical perspective that I think is just fascinating. When you tell a story, you have to start with a person's name and then you can use a pronoun. Let's give an example. Abdullah woke up in the morning. Then he went to school. Simple, right? I use the word he, the pronoun he, after I've mentioned the name Abdullah. If I start the story with he, who's he? Now, here's the interesting thing. The surah begins by saying, say, qul huwa. He is Allah. Who's he? You guys see the issue? We haven't defined who he is yet. So who are we talking about? Who's he? Well, he is Allah. Well, okay, well, who's he? So you get my point? So it creates a bit of a conundrum, if you will, or a bit of a question. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begin with a pronoun? And so there's a deep philosophical observation that you can make, and I think it's really deep and really beautiful. Every human being is a spiritual being. Human beings are spiritual by nature. You can't separate the human being from some sort of level of spirituality. Human beings throughout history and even till today and for the rest of time, you will always find that they have some concept of the divine, some concept of a greater purpose, and that there's a purpose in life. After death there must be some kind of a resurrection or some kind of a judgment or some sort of a retribution. Human beings have these burning questions within them, right? And so because of that, you're walking around with, and by the way, the word huwa can mean he, it can also mean it. So because of that fact, every human being's walking around with these burning questions in their mind. What is life? What is my purpose? Who put me here? Who created me? Etc., etc. And so what you go up to people and you say, you know that thing, that thing that that's burning in your mind? These questions that are constantly coming to you? By the way, you want to know the answer to all this? It is Allah. Qul hu Allah. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The stress and the problems and the anxiety and the questions and the frustrations and the confusion, it can all be cured. The solution to all of this is what? Hu Allah. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qul hu Allahu ahad. So this is a really beautiful perspective that we can appreciate, inshallah ta'ala. And that, by the way, it's called dhamir al-sha'n. When you mention the pronoun before actually mentioning the subject, if anybody's interested, in Arabic it's called dhamir al-sha'n. Anyway, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Now this is really fascinating. The word you would expect in regular Arabic conversation, هُوَ اللَّهُ وَاحِدٌ. He is Allah, wahid, He is one. Wahid means one. The word ahad is not used as a khabar. Khabar means like the predicate. The technical term is predicate. Anyway, that's not important. The important point is this. The word ahad is used usually with a negative. La ahad fil masjid. There is nobody in the masjid. Or for example, as an idafa, as a construct phrase. Like, هل أحدكم سيكون موجود بالغد إن شاء الله. Are one of you going to be present tomorrow? أحدكم, one of you. Right? Let's say, for instance, I'm just off the top of my head. The point that I'm trying to get at is what? That you don't use ahad as an independent noun. It usually has a context. What's so fascinating is that Allah is describing that He is one and He is unique, and Allah is using a word that is only uniquely used for Him. Nobody else is ever described as ahad in the Arabic language. So in describing that Allah is one and unique, He is spoken in a way that is only used for Him, that is entirely unique for Him. Is everybody understanding this? By the way, there's another example of that. In the Arabic language, you have letters that are either flat letters or round letters. This is, this is one way to describe it. Like for example, a or ba or ta or tha. I notice my mouth is going ah, right? But then there's letters like kha and ba and let's say what else? Sad, etc. These letters are round letters, and you say it with a full mouth, ah versus ah. The letter lam is always flat, la, except in one exception. Guess where? Allah. So even in the name Allah, there is this uniqueness that it doesn't conform with the Arabic language. And there's other ways too, I'm not going to go into detail, but there's other ways how the name of Allah doesn't conform to the Arabic language, doesn't take tanween, etc. Anyway, different points. That's not important right now, but the extremely interesting point is that ahad is used in a unique way to describe that Allah is so unique that even this word is not used for anybody else. Okay, that's one point. So not just unique let's say He's not just uniquely good in a certain category, that even His categories are completely unique. That's one way to look at it. So somebody might have the doubt and say, no, a human being has qualities that are like Allah. For instance, Allah is Al-Basir. He is the all-seeing, and I can see. Allah is As-Sami'. He is all-hearing, and I can hear. Allah is Al-Hayy, the ever-living, and I'm alive. So we have commonalities. No. Even in those same attributes, Allah is unique. Why? From multiple perspectives. Allah's qualities are self-acquired. You acquired your sight, but you didn't petition for them, you didn't construct them yourselves. You were given your sight, you were given your hearing. Allah, it's self-acquired. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just has these innately. Allah's qualities are eternal. Eternal in the past, they've always been there. Eternal in the future, they will always be there. Your eyesight, it came at a certain point in time and it will break down and depreciate and finally finish at a certain point in time. You will not be able to see forever. You will not be able to hear forever. And furthermore, Allah's qualities are unlimited. For instance, I can see to the end of this room, but I can't see behind that wall. I can hear the people in this room, but I can't hear what's going on in the highway out there, etc., etc., or in the next house and so forth. My hearing is limited, my sight is limited. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's attributes are unlimited. And furthermore, my attributes are from a construct. In other words, there's pieces and parts to it, right? There's parts to my eyes, there's parts to my ears, etc., etc. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one definition of Qul huwallahu ahad is that Allah is one and is unbreakdownable. I don't even think that's an English word, but just bear with me. Allah is unbreakdownable, if you will. And what I mean by that is you cannot break Allah into different pieces and parts and see different components. Like, because if you say Qul huwallahu wahid, if you say that Allah is wahid, you can say a sayyara, a car is wahida, sayyara wahida, one car. But a car, you can break it down into 4 doors and 4 wheels and a steering wheel. You can break it down into its parts. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not wahid, Allah is ahad. Not just Allah is one, but beyond that, one as in you cannot break Him down into pieces, and that is a very interesting idea. Allah is, you could say, a pure will or a pure consciousness, all-powerful, unseen creator, and does not have pieces and components. It's also very interesting to note that when you look at the 5 pillars of Islam, you see unity within each one. What do I mean by this? La ilaha illallah, very clear. Denial of all deities, only one God. Muhammad Rasulullah, denial that there is a better way of life. All the different people claiming to have better ways of life. No, the best way of life, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then salah, 5 times a day we come together, we stand together, we listen to the same words, we move in the same positions of ruku' and sujood, we say salam together, and we are all lined up together. There's a clear image and demonstration of unity, and it brings people together. It brings a community together. This, in fact, is bringing us all together. Zakah, you take the money from the richest and you make them a little poorer by taking their money. You take the people that are the poorest, you make them a little bit richer. You're bringing them people closer together. Right? Everybody understand this? You're taking just a little bit from them and you're giving it to them, and you're closing the gap between the rich and the poor. That's what we're having a problem in this country, right? Right now, the rich keep getting richer, the poor keep getting poorer, and the wealth gap keeps growing. And then they say that, if this keeps happening, there's going to be instability in this society. Eventually, people will have nothing to lose. They'll rebel. They'll topsy-turvy throw over the whole government, and we'll have ourselves a really big problem. And so you have to always keep checks and balances to make sure that that gap doesn't grow too big, or else the whole thing's going to fall apart. So this is one safeguard from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is the best of economic scientists, or accountants, etc., etc. Allah is the greatest of all, because He's Al-Alim, the most knowledgeable, and so Allah knows the best system, and that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made 1/40th or 2.5% annually of your excess income. We're not going to go into detail about that, but you guys know what zakat is. Sawm is a huge image of unity. How? Because you wake up at the same time, you eat at the same time, you get hungry and thirsty at the same time, you break your fast together at the same time, families come together and invite each other, then they go to the masjid and pray tarawih together. It's a full month of unity. And then Hajj is the most obvious because it is the #1 largest annual religious gathering on planet Earth. You can look it up. There is no annual religious gathering bigger than Hajj every single year. And in the desert, in the middle of nowhere, where there's nothing, it's not in Hawaii, it doesn't have beautiful waterfalls or beautiful beaches, there's nothing beautiful going on, it's the desert. Why do people go there? Just for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, pure sincerity. So all 5 pillars of Islam, unity. Also, this Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Tawheed should not be a concept that's just a philosophical idea in our minds. It should be something that is within our lives. How do you live Tawheed? By having unity of purpose, by seeing the world in unity. What do I mean by this? That when you're going through good times, you have shukr and gratitude to Allah. When you're going through bad times, you have sabr and patience for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything goes back to Allah. Whether it's good times or bad times, the believer is always going through shukr and sabr. Sabr and shukr. Patience and gratitude. That is the attitude of the believer, and that is unified for the sake of Allah. Whether you deal with somebody who has good character, you learn from that character and you benefit for the sake of Allah. Whether you deal with somebody who has bad character, you learn from their bad character to not repeat that kind of character, and you learn for the sake of Allah. In everything you see unity. In everything, the believer should look at the world and see that this is a test from Allah. These are the blessings of Allah. This is the creation of Allah, and it unifies your whole mindset. It brings everything together. That is living Tawheed. In fact, there's a beautiful ayah. Allah describes Himself. It's beautiful. It's right at the beginning of Baqarah. Allah gives an argument for the sake of Tawheed that is so powerful. So somebody who opens up the Quran right near the beginning, they find an argument for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is so wonderful. And I love this ayah. It's in Surah Baqarah verse 22. الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ الْأَرْضَ فِرَاشًا وَالسَّمَاءَ بِنَاءً وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. Allah says, it is He who made for you the earth like a bed that is spread out, and the sky like a ceiling from where He sends down rain, and then the rain and brought forth fruits and vegetation and provisions for you. So do not attribute to Allah equals while you know better than that. So what is Allah saying? You disbelievers, you see the world as disunity. You have said that, it's just chaos. There's gods of the earth, there's gods of the heavens, there's different gods for different things because it's all rival gods and everything's chaotic. And even atheists today, they say the whole world's just a bunch of chaos, it's just random forces, etc. So you see a bit of a parallel there. Allah says, you think that there's different deities running all this operation? There's deities of the heavens and there's deities of the earth? Think about it. Why is it that from the heavens, from the skies above, rain falls down from above your head, it goes beneath your feet, soaks up into the ground, and then grows from that vegetation that is good for you, that you can grab from the earth and consume it, and it is good for your body? You see disunity in all that? No, you see harmony in all that. Open your eyes and realize that all of this is a big system that is benefiting you. So how can you say that I look at the world and I see disunity and chaos when everything's working in beautiful harmony? Pay attention. You don't see disunity, you see beautiful harmony. And that is an argument for Tawheed. That is an argument for the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's putting on the vision or the glasses and seeing the world through the filter of Tawheed by looking at the world and seeing harmony and unity within it. And so that is a powerful argument. And we as believers, we should see that the harmony of the world. There's another fascinating observation. SubhanAllah, I love this. This is so amazing. See, the more, with regards to social hierarchies, when you look at in a society, social hierarchies, the more one rises in power, the more exclusive and disconnected they become, right? So the more rich, people become, the more they can't connect to the poor people, right? They don't even understand the language they speak. They don't understand the lifestyle they live. They don't understand what it's like to be like them, and vice versa. So then that begs a question: if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so great and so beyond us, maybe He has nothing to do with us. Maybe there's no point of you in praying to him, right? You see this potential doubt can show up. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala combines different names of Allah to clarify. For instance, Allah says that He is Al-Ghani and Al-Hamid. Allah combines these two names of Allah 10 times in the Quran. Ghani means that He is self-sufficient, that He is in need of nothing. So then you say if He's in need of nothing, then maybe He doesn't need us, then He doesn't care about us, maybe He has nothing to do with us. Hamid means He is worthy of all praise. That means no, you still have to connect to Him. He doesn't need you, but you need Him. So never think to yourself that you are disconnected from Him. So these two prevent you from going to one of two extremes. Don't think that Allah is in need of, like, oh, why does God want me to pray to Him? Why, does He need my prayers? Is He sitting around hoping for my prayers? No. He is Hamid, and He is praiseworthy, but He doesn't need it. He's Ghani. You see, you can look at it from the backwards perspective as well. So it clarifies these two extremes. In this surah, we find the same thing going on. Allah is Ahad. He is completely unique. He's like nothing you could ever imagine. And then you have the doubt, and you say to yourself, okay, well, if He's so disconnected from me, maybe there's no point of worshiping Him, or getting to know Him, or praying to Him, or have anything to do with Him. No, Allah is also As-Samad. Allah is As-Samad. Now we're going to get into what As-Samad means, to show the balance, how these two balance out beautifully. I do want to mention, though, really quickly, that when Bilal radiallahu anhu was being tortured, what did he keep saying to the disbelievers that made them angry? What did he say? Ahadun ahad. Ahadun ahad. He just kept on burning them with ahad. So when we say Qul huwallahu ahad, it should remind us of Bilal radiallahu anhu and how that word burned in their mind, it bothered them. Why? Because it has a profound meaning and profound implications, and they knew that flew in the face of their idolatry. Another, the slogan on the Battle of Badr, when the believers got together and they fought the Battle of Badr, every time that there was a battle in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, there was always a slogan, something that everybody would repeat and chant and pump themselves up and then go for battle. And in the Battle of Badr, it was Ahadun Ahad, same slogan, Ahadun Ahad. So, I'm going to have to move faster. I think my time is, subhanAllah, lots of notes, too many notes. No, okay, so a few more points before we move forward to As-Samad. It's very interesting that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes how مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ, that Allah never put two hearts in one man. And what one implication of that is what? That you don't have two wills. You know as a human being that if you had two wills, you would not be able to function, right? Well, you want to do this, and then another will is telling you to do that. What are you going to do? It's, it doesn't function, it doesn't work. You have one will, and that's why you are a sound, functioning human being. In that exact same way, Allah says, لَوْ كَانَ فِيهِمَا آلِهَةٌ إِلَّا اللَّهِ لَفَسَدَتَا. If there were more deities, except other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this universe would have been completely disrupted. And this is a very important point with regards to atheists. Because atheists, they look at this universe and they say, oh yeah, it's just a bunch of forces, blind matter and forces acting, and that created human beings, and I can understand this universe, and I understand that everything, there's no God, it's just a bunch of matter and chaos. And then you say, buddy, are you an outside observer? Are you somehow detached from this universe? Or are you a product of this universe? And he's going to say, well, I'm obviously a product. If you're a product of all this chaos, how are you so confident that your mind is soundly assessing what this world actually is? Even your ability to assess the world has an implication, has a hidden assumption. And that hidden assumption is what? That my mind is sound, that my mind is properly functioning. Now the believer has no problem with that, because the believer says, I take as a point of belief, I start, my whole quest begins with the ground assumption, with the asas, with the foundation, that Allah is perfect, that Allah is our creator, and He created me with a sound intellect, and it is with that sound intellect that I will begin my journey to research and figure out what the truth is. But if you try to search for the truth and try to figure out what this world is all about, meanwhile you're using a tool that you don't know if you can trust, and then you come to the conclusion that the world is all chaos, and then you've come to that conclusion, wait a second, if the world's all chaos and the world produced my mind, then how do I know that I've gotten to the right conclusion? It's like you're following a map, and the map gets you to a place, and then you finally get to a place, and the big sign finally at the end tells you, by the way, your map was broken the whole time. So how do you know that you got to the right place to begin with? You guys, it's a crude analogy, I know, but just bear with me. So anyway, that is a bigger topic that we can talk about another day, inshallah, but I think that's a very important point, that no, that there is a unity behind this universe. There's not random chaotic forces. That there is a unity, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Just the same way you appreciate the oneness of your own ability to have a will, appreciate that there is a will behind this universe, and that is why you can trust your own mind, etc. Okay, now finally, Allahu Samad. This is a big word. It is a hapex legomenon. Does anybody know what a hapex legomenon is? I had to look up how to pronounce it. I think that's the way you pronounce it. I had to look it up on YouTube. A hapex, oh wow. Okay, I gotta hurry, inshallah. Hapex legomenon is a word that shows up in a whole text only once. So as-samad is only found once in the Quran. At the end of the Quran, after everything Allah mentions that He is as-samad, only mentioned once in the Quran. Very fascinating word. It has a lot of meanings, so it might take me a minute to get through this. I will try to hurry up, inshallah. Number one is that He is the one that is, as-samad is the one who is enough for anyone, that fulfills all their needs and all their questions. He is the one that everybody turns to in a time of need. So let's say, for example, there was pure chaos in society and everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and they're all panicking and they're all worried, and they all say, we got to go to one person who always is calm and cool and knows what to do in a time of panic. That person that they go to, he would be described as Samad. Okay? So Allah, and also another meaning is the one from which everything comes, but itself did not come from anything. Okay? And this is the whole idea of the, I believe it was Aristotle, the Aristotelian idea of the unmoved mover, or the uncaused cause. That, if you look at the world as a bunch of domino effects, like everything cause and effect, then either that domino effect goes back infinitely, which is an absurdity, because it doesn't make sense. It's called a infinite regress. And it doesn't make any sense, because that would mean that there is no beginning. And so if it can never begin, then we would never be here now. If there was an infinite amount of time before this moment, we can never reach this moment. It's a very simple logical fact. If there was an infinite amount of cause and effect before this moment, then we would never be able to reach this moment, because it's infinite. So that means there must have been a bunch of causes and effects that go back to eventually one thing that itself was the cause of everything, but itself wasn't caused by anything. It was the big first push that itself was not pushed by a prior domino. Everybody understand this idea? That is called as-samad. And we affirm that Allah is as-samad. So, and also that the thing that everything seeks help from and everything needs, but it itself needs nothing. This is also the meaning of as-samad. Another meaning of as-samad, lots of meanings of this, a very complex word, is the goal. And this is, by the way, why this is called Surah Al-Ikhlas. Because you develop, because, like as we said, the believer who has sincere Tawheed in his heart, he should say what's in his heart. So if you have Ikhlas of Tawheed, it should come out. Qul. We talked about that earlier. Another reason why, because Allahu Samad, Allah is the goal. Everything you do at the end of the day, there's a number one goal behind everything that you do, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every time you mention this surah and say Allahu Samad, if you don't remember anything else, just remember this one point, please. Every time you stand in salah and you say Allahu Samad, you are saying what? That Allah is my ultimate goal. Everything I'm doing is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of the day. And this is one way we can give da'wah, because it says qul, right? To convey this message. We can tell people, listen, in your life you have tons of goals. I gotta wake up in the morning, I gotta have my lunch, I gotta meet my family, I gotta da-da-da. You have lots of goals. And they have priorities. This is a very important goal, this is on the back burner, etc., etc. That's just human nature. If you have lots of goals, and if they are in a hierarchy, that means necessarily there must be one thing at the top of that list. For me, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is at the top of your list? This is a point of da'wah I think that is brilliant. And it is expressed in this surah by saying, Qul, say these words, that Allah is one, and that Allah is my ultimate goal. Go out and tell people this. And then by saying this to them, ask them the question, what is your ultimate goal in life? What is at the top of that list? Some people say, well, I work so I can live, and I live so I can work. So my ultimate goal is to survival, to stay alive. Tell them, you will fail. Your goal will fail. You will, ultimately you will die. It's a failing goal. I have a certain goal. Yeah, you're going to lose. You are destined to lose that goal. Do you have a better goal? Anyway, you could have a long conversation about this question. It's a very interesting question that we should have these conversations. Another meaning of as-samad. I know there's a lot. As-samad, another meaning is what? Something like a samad can describe something that is 100% pure. Like let's say a boulder that has no cracks and no breaks in it, or a solid brick of gold, right? No flaws, so flawless, that's one implication, and no impurities, completely pure. And it is all one thing. Earlier we said ahad, one of the meanings of ahad is that Allah is not, you can't break him down into components and analyze him by breaking him down. So Allah is as-samad, 100% pure and 100% flawless. And one implication behind this also that is so brilliant and so powerful is that after reading the whole Quran, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that I will bless the believers and the believers will go to paradise and the disbelievers will lose in the end, and all these different promises, Allah finally finishes and says, by the way, I am completely 100% full and pure and flawless in everything that I've just said. Everything that I've just said is going to come to pass. There is not a single flaw in what I said because I am as-samad. I am flawless and I am perfect in every way. That's another implication there. So, moving on. I think that's my time, huh? Yeah, finish it up. So, khair inshallah. I think we're going to close with that point, and we're going to have to do lam yalid wa lam yulad next week inshallah. So we did one half, qul huwallahu ahad and Allahu samad. Subhanallah, just 2 ayats. You see, they're very heavy. And we're going to open it up for Q&A inshallah. I'll mention one quick point, that it's interesting that Allah didn't put al. He didn't say qul huwallahul ahad. He didn't put al in that one, but he did put al in as-samad. He didn't say qul huwallahu samadun. He said qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad. So there's an alif lam on one of them and not on the other. And one reason is because in Arabic it's not used for anybody, ahad. So even in that way you wouldn't put an, he isn't the ahad, because that would imply that there are other people that are ahad. Right? If you put an alif lam on it, that would be the implication. But samad, because it could be used for other people in the context of like, who do we run to in a time of need? We run to that guy. So you could call him samad. But Allah is saying, no, that of all the different people that might be called samad, I'm as-samad. I'm the only true samad. That everything connects back to me, and I need no one. I'm in need of no one. So anyway, it's just an interesting Arabic, for those who like these little details, you see this difference between the al being present in one and not the other. Okay, khair inshallah, we're going to stop there, and then inshallah we will continue this surah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, with the last 2 ayat next week. We're going to open up for Q&A. Like I say every week, you don't want to be the type of person that information goes in one ear and then out the other. You want to be the type of person that listens to information, processes it in their mind, and then comes up with their own observations. So, if you want to make this gathering lively and interesting, inshallah, and prove to yourself and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to everybody else that inshallah you've truly digested this information, I suggest that you think about what has been said and inshallah add to the conversation. Does anybody would like to raise their hand and perhaps make a comment or question? But I prefer comments. You know, it's nice when we get a nice conversation going. Brothers, sisters. I'll start with the sisters. Any hands up? I'll start with the brothers, I mean. Who says ladies first? No, I'm just joking around. Khair, inshallah. Yes, bismillah.
Observation. I think about this surah, that's the importance of it so much that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would recite it constantly in the sunnah,
yes,
Fajr and Maghrib.
That's right.
So there has to be some importance of, like, even Kafirun, you know, these two surahs.
Yes. Oh, they.
So there has to be. Maybe you can elaborate.
I appreciate you brought that up because it's in my notes, but there's just too much information, so I have to make it tight. These 2 surahs. Oh, I'll repeat the question. So the brother was saying that isn't it amazing that the Prophet ﷺ would recite these very often, 2 rak'ah before Fajr, also after 2 rak'ah after Maghrib. There's many different, also some narrations mention Salat al-Istikhara, that he would mention Kafirun and Ikhlas. And it seems that the Kafirun and Ikhlas are paired often, right? They have something together. And Mu'awwadhatayn, the last 2 quls, they're paired, that's clear. Qul a'udhu bi rabbi, you know, etc. But then these 2 surahs, they're also paired. And they're called, one nickname for them is al-muqashqish. Muqashqish means that the things that remove sickness or remove a disease. And so it's like la ilaha illallah, la ilaha and illallah. The la ilaha part is qul ya ayyuhal kafirun, denial of any sort of disbelief. Qul ya ayyuhal kafirun. Then the illallah is the affirmation of Allah, that's qul huwallahu ahad. You see? So when it comes to the purity of your belief towards Allah and not worshipping other than Allah, the denial of all false deities, Surah Kafirun. The affirmation of only Allah, Surah Ikhlas. So these two are very well paired together, and they do have this negative affirmation and positive affirmation that sort of complement one another. So Jazakallah khair for that comment. Yeah, bismillah.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Just like last time, it, like I was reading Quran.
Yeah.
I just like I came across like one ayah, like they say like كمثل الشيطان إذ قال للإنسان أكفر
فلما كفر
قال إني
بريء منك. Yeah.
إني أخاف الله رب العالمين.
Absolutely.
Like, and again like قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس.
Yes.
Like, is there any connection between that?
Absolutely. Waswasa is, so the question is there a connection between, this is more the few weeks before. This is Surah Ikhlas. But anyway, yeah, we talked about this before. But anyway, we could repeat, no problem, that when it comes to Surah Mu'awwadhatayn, Surah Nas specifically, the waswasa is to whisper in such a way that is very subtle and you hardly notice, right? And it's done when you're in a state of ghafla, when you're in a state of heedlessness, when you're not really paying attention. The moment you actually pay attention in life and remember Allah, the ghafla goes away, the heedlessness goes away, and then shaitan runs away as well. That's why he's khannas, constantly running away. So he does waswasa as an attack, and then khannas as retreat. Anyway, the retreating also is that when you get into trouble. We mentioned that a few weeks ago. That when you get into trouble, he does khanasa, he runs away. So that's the ayah that perfectly demonstrates it when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when shaitan says to the human being, ikfur, or ukfur. He says to the human being, disbelieve in Allah. And then he disbelieves, says, yeah, I don't believe in God. فَلَمَّا كَفَرَ قَالَ إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْكَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. And the moment that the person says, I disbelieve, the shaitan says, I'm out of here. I'm إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْكَ. I have nothing to do with you. I am free from you. And so he completely abandons the human being. And then he says, إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ رَبَّ الْعَالَمِينَ. I fear Allah, the Lord of the worlds. So it's really funny the way that shaitan, there are some people that are like this. There are some human beings. I remember in high school there'd be people like this. Do something, throw something at the, you know what I'm talking about, right? Do something bad in class, make noise or disrupt the class or do something disruptive and evil. You're like, you do it. No, you do it. And the moment you get into trouble and you listen to them, what do? Inni akhafu Allah Rabb al-Alameen. Bari'un mink. I got nothing to do with you. So this is a shaitani tactic. And na'udhu billah, we ask Allah to stay away from people like this and from shaitan, the waswas that suggest us things like this. Okay, khair inshallah. I got to bring it back to Surah Ikhlas though. Sorry, akhi. It's good though. It's a good. Yeah.
I personally I appreciate the insights
Barakallahu feek.
that you've given us. And the question is, what was the circumstance behind this particular revelation?
Right. So there is a hadith. I have it here. I didn't mention because it's a weak hadith. There's some weakness in it. But basically, there is a hadith where the disbelievers would ask the Prophet ﷺ, "Unsub lana rabbaka." Tell us the nasab. Tell us the lineage of your Lord. Right. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, He is one, Allahu Samad. Everything comes from Him, He doesn't come from anybody. لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ. He's not going to have any nasab, and nor did He come from anybody. He's not going to have any lineage, nor does He come from a lineage. Because the Arabs were very proud of their lineage, right? There were people that were very proud of their lineage, and so they said, well, tell us the lineage of your Lord. And then وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. I don't want to go into detail of what those two ayat are. لَمْ يَلِدْ وَلَمْ يُولَدْ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. That's for next week, and inshallah, hopefully everybody shows up. We're going to have a good time, inshallah. But the point that I'm getting at is what? That there is this asbab al-nuzul, it's called asbab al-nuzul, the causes of revelation. And this is a hadith where they said, give us the lineage of your Lord. And then Allah said, no. This is the answer. That He has no lineage, He is one. He doesn't come from anybody, nor does He produce other deities. And even, I'm not going to talk, I have a bunch of points queued up in my head about lam yalid wa lam yulad. I'm not going to spoil myself for next week, inshallah. But the reason why I didn't bring it up, maybe I should have, because there's some weakness in the narration. That's the reason. Yes, bismillah.
The word who Allah, ahad.
Yes.
So the who is coming twice in the first ayah.
No, in the first ayah, it's qul huwa. Oh, sorry, he said that huwa is, to repeat the question, the word huwa shows up twice. That's not correct. Qul means say. Huwa means He. Allahu, that's probably where you're making the mistake, because it's Allahu, the last ha has a dhamma at the end. That's not the word huwa again. It's just the name Allah ends with a ha, and it has a dhamma, so it sounds like you're saying who again, but it's not the word who twice. Is that clear? Yes. Khair inshallah. Perfect. Sisters' questions. I have to know that the sisters are paying attention. I'm going to feel like no one's listening. I'll give you another minute. Another brother will ask a question, and then inshallah, we need to know that the sisters are also absorbing the Quran. Is it raising our youth, our next generation? We need to know that they. I know they're getting it, but we need to. The sisters got to represent. I'm very particular. You know, they say that if you can give da'wah and you know make help a man become practicing, then you've helped one person. But if you are able to have an effect on a sister, then inshallah that's a family, right? So subhanallah, you know, it's very important to make sure that the sisters, you know, they have so much more power and so much more influence, and subhanallah, the reach is so much heavier. So anyway, that's why it's very important. Yes, yeah, go ahead.
And same thing, you know, on ahad versus as-samad, I was kind of confused on that. Why would there be as-samad and just ahad? And you elaborated that ahad is unique only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Let me give you an analogy. Okay, so the question is, why is it that one has alif lam, the other one doesn't? So to give an example, a person can be kareem, right? Let's say maybe there's a brother named Kareem here. I don't know. Kareem means generous. Allah is al-Kareem, the ultimately generous, the most generous. Understood? A person can be Rahim. Even in the Quran, Allah says that the Prophet ﷺ is Rahim. He's a merciful person. And a guy could be named Rahim. But a person can't be named Ar-Rahim, the most merciful. You can't do that. Because only Allah is Ar-Rahim. Even my name Nasser. My name is Nasser, by the way. People say, isn't your name Abdul Nasser? Because Allah is An-Nasir. But I don't put the alif lam on it. I am not the Nasir. Nasir, by the way, means helper, protector, or victorious one. The one who gives victory, okay? I'm not An-Nasir, that's Allah. And if you're going to be an abd, you have to be an abd of An-Nasir, Abdun Nasir, alif lam. But you can just be a person who is a helper, or who gives victory to people, etc. And so there's many examples like this. There's no point of specifying that Allah is Al-Ahad, because nobody else can be Ahad. This word is not used for people. Ahad is not used for human beings. So it's not necessary. So you just say, Qul huwallahu ahad. It's even in its use is so unique. But the word Samad, you could say that this person is the guy that we run to in times of trouble. When everybody's in a panic, we go to this guy. So he's Samad. But Allah is As-Samad. He is the ultimate one that everyone seeks refuge in. Because yeah, you can run to the government, you can run to the police station, you can run to this and that. But ultimately, Allah is in control. We recognize that. So that means Allah is As-Samad. Everyone understand this point? So that's one understanding. Is that clear? Khair inshallah. Now we got sisters' questions, right? I'm trying to put pressure over here. I'm getting nothing. Khair inshallah. So we will call it quits. Inshallah, next week we'll bring more brothers and more sisters and have more lively discussion. It's very important, and I really appreciate everybody's attentiveness. May Allah bless you all. And may Allah make us people of Surah Al-Ikhlas. May Allah make us people of Tawheed that have this not just intellectually, not just on our tongues, but in our hearts. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us of our shortcomings. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam kathira. Wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I apologize if I was putting too much pressure on the sisters. Sorry.